Hi again, everyone. Rob Ryder on the 3rd of February, 2025. And today, new sheriff in town. Will you enforce TILA as a civil right? TILA, of course, is the Truth in Lending Act, and I've been doing a series of videos on that particular subject. And the civil right part comes from, well, under the Department of Justice, they have a place to go online to file civil rights complaints. And I have done this myself, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. Never got any kind of reply. But of course, that was, back in the old days, and now we're apparently are supposed to have a new sheriff in town and headed to the golden age and so forth. So I thought, well, maybe it'd be different. And I went and looked at the website, and it looked a little bit different. And I said, well, what the heck? Maybe we should try this for the people who have gotten replies to their TILA complaint telling them that they need to contact the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which under that name does not exist in law. That's not what the law created. The law created the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection. Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection, not Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And this was created, supposed to be in the Federal Reserve, so now the Federal Reserve is involved. And so if we can get civil rights complaints against the Federal Reserve System, well, maybe we can just have it eliminated and, go back to pre-1913 way of doing business. Anyways, let's see what happens. So I am Rutluski Robert Allen, an indefinite enlistee, DOD ID number 12112800006. If you're a veteran, you pay attention to this video. I'm going to show I did a complaint here myself, but I don't have a TILA. I just wanted to see if I could fill it out, and I did. And so I did it about the fact that, we're all still in the military. We should still have ID cards, that kind of stuff. We'll save that to the end. Anyways, I'm also known as Rob Ryder. Email address is courtofrecord@AOL.com, and you can find my postings on X and YouTube at Rob Ryder, ROBBBRYDER, 3 B's, or Rumble, Rob Ryder with 2 B's. And specifically then, what I'm talking about, if you're just now finding out about the Truth in Lending Act stuff I've been doing videos on, if you go to my site on YouTube and you were to start with Elon Musk, I'm positive Grok agrees, you would see that's where I asked Grok, who said, well, what is the formula for APR and finance charge? And Grok gave it to me. And I know there's a much more complicated one that they try to have you look at, but that's for them to calculate payoff when you're halfway through the loan or some other point. And we're just talking about from day one, here's the form, here's the disclosure. The disclosure has information on it. With that information, we don't need to trust the numbers they put on the Truth in Lending Act disclosure as being correct. We can calculate them ourselves. And as it turns out, if the APR is overstated or understated by like more than 1/4%, it's wrong. And if the finance charge is understated by more than $100, it's wrong. And that is for a mortgage. For just a regular loan, if it's like $5 or $10, it's wrong. So like for a car loan or something like that. So if the value of the finance charge on the form is $10 lower than what it should be, well, then it's wrong, and it's a crime because it violated the law. So anyways, I've been doing a number of videos on that, starting with Elon Musk. And then you got Truth in Lending will set you free, slap a bankster, TILA complaint, Fed first response, administrative state, respond TILA. You see TILA or Truth in Lending, that's what we're talking about. And we're going to add one more to it today. So without any further ado, let me get started. I guess starting with, if you Google or search the internet, I probably shouldn't say Google, search the internet for the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, you'll end up on this page eventually, and you can start a report, which is what we're talking about, doing a report. An interesting term to use. They don't call it a complaint, they call it a report. And if you look at the definitions of report, one of them is when you're telling the Court of Chancery something as opposed to the court of law or, yeah, court of law. And the court of chancery is really more like an administrative court. It's where you could get relief for things that were like a contract that was improperly put together. Where in a court of law, all they can give you is damages. They can just give you some money, but they can't fix the contract. So that could be important, as we're going to see. And so, yeah, on here, you can come down here. We protect your rights through enforcement, education, so forth and so on. And it started to list all these different things protected by civil rights laws. And for anybody who's a veteran, well, there you go, civil service member status. I say that if you're an enlistee, you're still in the military. Right? We never got discharged. And that would be my complaint, right? But there it is. But another one is things to do with financing. And so they have it so you can do this online, right? Start a report, boom, you can start it immediately. Let's just, I guess we're here, we'll just look at it real quick. Right, where you start filling out blah, 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 blah. But you can never really tell what the next page is because you got to finish the first page. So if you wanted to know what it was completely, you'd have to get a different way, which is come down a little farther and you can see where you can get a regular format. You click on that button there. And basically the electronic form now appears on a form. We can fill it out. And so we'll be looking at that also in just a second. Okay, so yeah, this is the site to do it on. And I suggest doing it online, but maybe downloading the form and filling it out first and say, okay, that's all what I want to say. And then you can just come back over here and either copy and paste or however you want to do it. Okay, so as you probably know, you've been following along, that if you go to the Federal Reserve Consumer Help, right, search on that, you come to this page right here. That's exactly what it's called. And you'll see that it's Federal Reserve Consumer Help.gov. So this is supposed to be something under the government. And turns out it's put out by the Federal Reserve System. So the Federal Reserve System is the one responsible for what happens with this form, and you can come here and figure out how to download a form. How do we do that exactly? And as you can see, it says filing your complaint directly with your bank's regulator is the most efficient way to have your concerns addressed. Use the FDIC bank fine tool to discover who supervises your bank and so forth and so on. And you could send it that way, but I had decided when I first did this, I don't want to do that. I'm going to take one method and just do it. So I'm going to take it to you people, because it says if you're still unsure of the correct agency to submit your concerns to, you may file your complaint here, and we'll refer it to you or for you. Okay, so that's how I wanted to do. And you hit this here, and you get this page here, complaints, tells you how to do it. But that was all. You come down here next, and it's electronic. Well, did they have a paper form? As it turns out, yes. If you hit file a complaint, right, you can get the print version of the complaint right here, consumer complaint form, print version. And well, let's just take a look. You'll see that the form looks like this. It's a really simple 2-page form. You got your information, representative contact. Now myself, I said, well, you should put in there your U.S. Congressman's information, which you can get online. I showed in the videos from previous, so I'm just saying, there is something you could put in there. Institution information, well, that's the lender, right? What you're complaining about, what it's going to take to satisfy you, and then you send it in. They really don't want you to send any other documents at this point. All they're going to do with this is figure out who you're supposed to, who your regulator is. And then forward it to them, and then they're supposed to contact you, and then you work with them, right? That seems simple enough. So, and you can see this has got an OMB number, so it's an official government form, and it came from the Federal Reserve. So they're responsible. And so people had done that, and they were getting replies, and the first couple of people got replies where it looks like, hey, they're going to send it to the FDIC the way they're supposed to, and this other one, they're going to send it to the state regulator, which, was that right or not? I don't know, but that's who they sent it to. But then after that, everyone else started to get kind of the same reply from the Federal Reserve Consumer Help as an email saying this email acknowledges receipt of your correspondence. Please be advised the entities you are inquiring about, which in this case is Navy Federal and Extra Finance, are subject to oversight by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for certain consumer protection laws and regulations. Please contact CFPB directly to submit your complaint online at the site. Make it look like it's oh so easy to do. There was one. Here's another one saying do the same damn thing. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. More here. Right, Federal Reserve Consumer Help. Sure enough, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for certain consumer protection laws, regulations. Well, that's a lie. There is no such thing as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in the law. The law says it's the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection. And the reason I can say that is, well, under Title 15 of the United States Code, Chapter 41, having to do with consumer debt cost disclosures, it says in here, just a second, under subsection 1602, that the Bureau, the term Bureau means the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection. And the board refers to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. So the Federal Reserve System is in this thing up to their necks. And they're the ones sending us to this wrong entity that doesn't exist in law. And, that makes it a civil rights violation, right? They're simulating a legal process under color of law. And then as you start reading through this, every time it says Bureau, just remember we're not talking about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, right? They're talking about the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection. Well, they're supposed to publish a single integrated disclosure for mortgage loan transactions, including real estate settlement cost statements, which includes the disclosure requirements of this subchapter, yada, 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 right? The Bureau shall prescribe regulations to carry out the purpose of this subchapter. It's all about the Bureau. But they're not sending us to the Bureau. And it talks about determination of finance charge. Well, what is a finance charge? Okay, it's the sum of all charges payable directly or indirectly by the person whom the credit is extended. Finance charge does not include charges of a type payable in a comparable cash transaction. Well, that's fine. I don't know what that means exactly. I just know that I'm not involved in the cash transaction. So all the frickin' charges should fall under the finance charge. And that includes the interest. And so we're going to see in some of the examples I had shown in the past where when you do the calculation of, well, how much interest it was paid, take the P&I, the principal and interest, times it by the number of months, remove the principal, you're left with the interest. Well, when that number is bigger than the finance charge that's being displayed, you know that there's a problem. I'll show you an example here in a minute, right? But, all right, here's the things. Interest. There it is. First thing, interest. Then all these other things are all part of the finance charge. That's why your interest rate is lower than your APR, which is the annual percentage rate, because the annual percentage rate includes the interest and all the charges. It goes on to say in 1606, the annual percentage rate, again, regulations of the Bureau, will yield a sum equal to the amount of the finance charge which apply the unpaid balance for the amount financed. Okay, well, all I know is the Bureau is supposed to do it. We don't have one. Well, what if there's something wrong? This is where it gets good, because this is 1607, right? 15 USC, United States Code 1607, Administrative Enforcement, where it says that subject Title B, Consumer Financial Protection Act, compliance with requirements imposed under the subchapter shall be enforced under 12, this particular section, 12 USC 1818, and we're going to get the definitions out of 12 USC 1813Q. And those are the regulators, those are like bank regulators. That's the FDIC, it's the Board of governors of the Federal Reserve System and the comptroller of the currency. So they have jurisdiction over A, B, and C, all these different ones. Well, then under 2, under the Federal Credit Union Act, we got the Director of National Credit Unions, right, with respect to federal credit unions. The Secretary of Transportation's got his little piece. Packers and Stockyards Act has something to do with it. So does the Farm Credit Act. And finally, we get down to Subtitle E of the Consumer Financial Protection Act of 2010 by the Bureau with respect to any person subject to this chapter. Well, what's the name of the Bureau? It's the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection. But that's not where they are telling you to go to. They're sending you to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Well, that's color of law, simulated legal process. That's a civil rights violation. You should file a complaint. And then another document I referred to numerous times in the videos previous is the FDIC Consumer Compliance Examination Manual. If you search on those words there, you'll find a complete copy. And this is like Chapter V on lending under the TILA. Well, can't be any more plainer than that. And, read as much as you want. I'm just going to kind of skip through here. On page 10 of this document, then, again, this is just to do with Chapter V. I don't know what page it is exactly, but the finance charge is measure the cost of consumer credit represented in dollars and cents. The finance charge does not include any charge of a type payable. We already read that. Examples are in a comparable cash transaction, right? Taxes, title, license fees, registration fees, paid in connection with automobile purchase. Those are things that would not be part of the finance charges. Finance charges include, then it starts to give you a list. It goes on to talk about the accuracy, right? It says tolerance is a finance charge in the close-end transaction, which is really the only type of transaction I'm working with right now. Is just close-end transaction, like a mortgage, probably a refinance of a mortgage, car loan, something like that. Not credit cards or revolving types of credit, just a closed-end transaction. So tolerance are generally $5 in an amount financed is less than the amount. If the amount financed is less than or equal to $1,000, and $10 if more than $1,000. And then secured by real property or dwelling, well, then it's $100, not understated by more than $100. Well, that sounds pretty simple. Then you go on here, rescission rights in a foreclosure. So if you're in a foreclosure right now, you should be able to rescind it if there's something wrong with the transaction. Right? Tolerance is the disclosure after the initiation of foreclosure, consumer principal dwelling that secures a credit obligation. The disclosed finance charge is considered accurate if it is understated by no more than $35. It can be overstated, but it can't be understated. It can't be understated by more than $35. And every one that I've looked at so far, the finance charge is always understated. And many times by, if not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just depends on how big your loan is. The disclosed finance charge and the total of payments are considered accurate if the amount disclosed was greater than the amount required to be disclosed, right? So if it's overstated, that's not a problem. However, in the event of foreclosure, the consumer may exercise the right of rescission if the disclosed finance charge is understated by more than $35. So if you can rescind the contract, they got to give you back the title. Right? They took your title as collateral. If you go and look at your mortgage or your deed of trust, about the second page, I think it talked about transfer of ownership or transfer of the property or something like that. And you're going to give them the transfer of rights to your property. Well, you're going to get those back. That's what the rescission will give you those back. The finance charge initially includes any charge that is or will be connected with a specific loan. So there you are. Then if you're really into it, you can go to the finance charge chart, and you can see all the different things that could be, maybe, might not be, who knows, right? Charges never included, that's these, and all these other ones are charges that might be included, or the ones that are included. Annual percentage rate definition, to tell you all about annual percentage rates. What I really wanted to get to, I guess, is, well, hang on here. Let's just read this. Special requirement for calculating finance charge APR. The proper calculation of finance charge APR are of primary importance. The regulation requires that the terms finance charge and annual percentage rate be disclosed more conspicuously than any other required disclosure, subject to limited exceptions. The finance charge APR, more than any other disclosure, enables consumers to understand the cost of credit in comparison shop for credit. The creditor's failure to disclose the values accurately can result in significant monetary damage to the creditor, either from class action lawsuit or from a regulator agency order to reimburse consumers for violations of the law. Bing, 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 bing. Okay, and last thing I want to show in this is a little bit of a review. If you go to the 40th page of this section, right, section V of the complete document from FDIC, on these next 4 pages, it'll be for, this one's for understated finance charge, next one's for overstated finance charge, the next one's for understated APRs, or I mean overstated APRs, and the next one's for understated APRs. All right, so in each case, you can just go from the top and see what happens. Let's do understated finance charge. Is a loan secured by real estate or a dwelling? Well, let's just say yes because we can. If the disclosed FC understated by more than $100, yes. FC violation. Is a loan term greater than 10 years? Yes. Is a loan term, is a loan regular loan? Well, let's just say yes. Is the disclosed FC plus FC reimbursed tolerance based 1/8 of 1 percentage point? All right, so are you outside of those terms? Yes. Subject to reimbursement. Really that simple. Boom, 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 right? In 1 page, if you got understated finance charge, you can find out if it's subject to reimbursement. What if it said no, there is no dwelling? Is the amount financed greater than 100? Let's just say it is because most cars are. Yes. Is the disclosed FC understated by more than 100 or by more than 10? Well, let's say yes. FC violation. No, well then it's not a violation. I just say, well, when you do the math, it's going to be greater than $10, so it's FC violation. Is a loan term greater than 10 years? Let's say no. Most car loans aren't, I guess. Is the disclosed FC plus the FC, that's the finance charge, reimbursed tolerance based on 1/4 of a percentage? In other words, is it more than 1/4% off? Well, yes. Subject to reimbursement. All right, that's how she rolls. You can do the same with overstated. So is there any chance? Well, there's a chance it's an FC violation, but it doesn't say that it would be overstated. This is for overstated finance charge. There is a FC violation, but it doesn't say it's reimbursable. Open-end credit, overstated APR. So what if those are overstated? APR violation. And then understated APR. Subject to reimbursement. All right, so if you have an understated APR or an understated finance charge, well, those are subject to reimbursement. And what I've found on almost, on every one so far, is that the APR is always overstated and the finance charge is always understated. Let's look at a couple examples. Right, and this is where I got that. FDIC Consumer Compliance Examination Manual. You can get the entire manual. That'll take you to this site, Consumer Compliance Examination Manual, where you can download the whole manual. You can cruise on down here and just find V, which is the Consumer Compliance Lending Issues, and download it, and you see what I was talking about. Okay, so quickly on a car, right? This is a security agreement. Here's the truth in lending disclosures. You got the APR, annual percentage rate, of 23.56, finance charge of 20,814, the amount financed 23,715, the number of payments 72, which is 6 years of payments, and you will end up having to do the math to figure out how many days it is. So since 72 months is 6 years, 6 times 365 will give you the total number of days. Need it for a particular calculation we'll look at in a minute. And the amount of the payments, right? Your P&I, principal and interest, $618.48. Which is really all the information you need to do the calculations. And to do those calculations, then, you go to something like this, where there's a 23.56. So I just pull all the numbers over here so we can see where they came from, right? Well, let's solve for the total interest to be paid first, right? So you take the monthly P&I of $618.48, multiply it by the number of months, which is 72, end up with $44,530, and you subtract the principal, and you're left with interest of $20,814.86. Well, that's how much the finance charge is. So it must be understated because there's no other amounts in there except the interest. And they didn't do it for free. All right, so I don't need to know what it is necessarily. I'm just going to say, well, based on that, it must be understated. To me, that would be enough reason to send the complaint in. And that, because at the time I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to do my calculation. And what I really want them to do is have to do their calculation. And now we'll have something to compare, right? And so complain and make them do it. Nevertheless, it's the finance charge from the form, from the TILA form, right here, $20,814.86, is really just what the interest is without any other charges. And we already saw, well, it's the interest plus other things. Okay, well, now let's calculate the APR. Right, so I know they have an APR, but we're going to calculate to see if it's over or understated, right? So APR, now this is the formula that Grok gave me, the simplified formula, right? Finance charge divided by loan amount is going to give you a fraction. And you're going to multiply that fraction by 365 divided by loan term in days. So in our case, we got APR equals 20,814 divided by 23,715 equals about 0.8777. And we got 365 divided by 2190, which is the number of days, and 72 months. And we get 0.1667. And then we're going to multiply those together. And you get 0.1463, which, when you multiply that by 100 to go to percentage, is 14.63%. So the disclosed APR at 23.56, this is disclosed one, right? This is what they put. Well, that's overstated compared to your calculated value. Simple enough. That's all we're doing right now. Now we're going to go do the same thing with the finance charge. And we find out that the finance charge, because the finance charge is part of this formula, that if we do a little mathematical what would you call it, divining, we're going to change the formula basically, right? Put finance charge over here by itself. Well, that finance charge equals the APR times the loan amount times the loan term in days divided by 365. In other words, the finance charge equals the APR 23.56, right? Not the one we calculated, the one they put on the form. The disclosed finance is based on that APR, right? So that's 23.56. The loan amount's 23,715. Loan term in days, I told you that already. We're going to basically go back to 6 years. So you end up with 0.2356, which is the finance charge. Is the APR as a decimal. It was 23.56%. When you want to go from percentage back to decimal, you have to divide by 100. That's what we did. And then we know what the amount financed is. Because that's on the first page, right? TILA, what's the amount financed? 23,715. Okay. Don't argue with it. Put it in there. Loan term in days was 2,190. That's the number of days in 6 years divided by 365 takes it back to 6. I just did it because that's what it said to do. And you end up with $33,524.51, which means the disclosed finance charge of $20,814.86 is understated. So that being the case, what I had told this person was, well, just take, because now we're going to talk about writing the complaint. Okay, I did my math. What am I going to do now? Well, file a complaint. Complainant is the buyer party with institution as lender party in a consumer financial transaction under agreement number. Right, all that stuff came off of here. We've got an agreement number up here. Their information I got hit underneath here, but it's all on here. Who's who in the zoo. Right, using data from the lender provided truth in lending disclosure. Right, you didn't come up with this; they gave it to you. I have calculated the APR and finance charge and the total principal and interest. I find the disclosed APR overstated and the finance charge understated outside allowable tolerances. And it appears the lender may have committed a federal crime. Period. That's the end of my complaint. Well, what did you want for relief? Use all allowed administrative enforcement actions to provide rescission, restitution, civil penalty, adjustment of accounts, etc., to provide complete equitable relief. So if you did a Google or a search on administrative enforcement actions, you could end up at the Comptroller of the Currency's website, and it has a whole list of what those are. Right, so I'm just listing them right here. I'll take whatever ones I can get. All right, so so today, if you were to do this and you were to fill out the form, you're probably going to get an answer back like, oh, I just told you that, well, you need to contact the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's their go-to answer now, which is not the proper agency. Okay, so that was car loan where they still use the TILA disclosure that looks something like this, which is similar to what they use on older mortgages, right? It's just called the Truth in Lending Disclosure. But about 2015, they started using a different name thing. They called it the Closing Disclosure. It's got all the same information. It's just not necessarily as easy to find or, as apparent right off the bat. But, there's a loan term. So you got the number of years. You got the amount, loan amount. You got the interest rate. You got the monthly P&I. Well, in reality, we don't really need the loan amount or the interest rate because we're not doing either of those, right? We're looking for something else, which is on a different page, on the 5th page of this document, where we find out, well, there's the finance charge, right? And there's the amount financed, and there's the annual percentage rate, right? Those are the 3 things we need off of this last page, plus a few things off of the first page to do our calculations, which look like this. Where, make sure I do this right. Yeah, the APR 6.103. Is that what it was? Because this says that the interest rate's 5.9. Apparently, they don't have to be the same thing, right? So there we go. 6.103. Oh, the other thing I didn't mention is this is where you'll find out where the lender's information is. So you know who you're complaining about. Okay, back to the calculation. So our APR is 6.103. We got the finance charge, 85,000 and change. The amount financed, which I put, but really we do need the amount financed. Yeah, that's from the 5th page. It's not the loan amount, it's the amount financed. Loan term is 20 years, which is 7,300 days, which is 240 months. There's the interest rate, which I put because we can, but we don't necessarily need it. But we do want the principal and interest, which is 841. So let's total that and see where we are after we pay the damn thing off. So if you take total P&I is going to equal 841 times 240 months. It's $210,840. Right? Now we got the total P&I. Well, let's subtract the P to equal the I. Because we're really just interested in the interest. So we take the 210,840 and subtract the 116,400, and we end up with 85,440. right? That's the interest. Well, again, then the finance charge must be understated because it does not even equal the total interest, right? 85,438, and we came up with 85,440, right? So it's understated by just a couple $100, but they didn't put any other thing in there. I mean, not a couple, just a few bucks, you know, $1.50 or something. But they didn't put anything in there, right? There's no other charge other than the interest. There must be something wrong. Let's continue on. Solve for the APR, which is the finance charge divided by the amount financed. That fraction times 365 divided by loan 30 days. Those two fractions together, in our particular case, end up with 0.7365 times 0.05. Calculated APR is 3.69%. Well, the disclosed APR is 6.11% or 6.103%, so it's overstated. And again, it's supposed to be less than a quarter percent. Go back to those flow charts I was showing. It will show you that, you know, the worst case scenario is that the APR can be outside of tolerances by 1/4 of 1%. And this is like 3% or 2.5% out of tolerance. Okay, well, we got that. Now, how about APR? Let's solve for the finance charges. Or excuse me, let's solve for finance charges, which now we need the APR. Right, so we got the APR when we make it a decimal instead of a percentage. And we got the amount financed. And we got loan term days, which is 7,300 divided by 365, which is 20 years. You get down to here, we say, well, the finance charges is $142,074 or $77. But they said the disclosed is $85,000. Well, you know, it's almost $60,000 off. Understated by $60,000. I'd say that's a problem. Now, are these numbers exactly correct? I don't give a shit. I just want to know it's more than $100 understated. That's all I care about. If it is, well, I can complain about it. And then I'll let them do the math and come up with the numbers. Right? Because they didn't show how they did their numbers. They just put numbers on the form, right? We're doing the calculation. Well, now we showed ours, they can show us theirs. Okay, so let's say you've done all that and you filled out the Federal Reserve Consumer Help complaint that we looked at earlier, and you get this answer back that says Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So they want you to contact, and you say, well, that isn't right. I want to file a civil rights complaint. How do I do that? What does it look like? Well, that's where we're going next. Because this is what that form looks like when you just download the form. And so, again, that's what I would do. I'd download it, fill it out, make sure you like the way it looks, and then say, okay, this is the information that I'm going to put on the online form to send in. But if you wanted to mail this to them, you can. I mean, it just isn't quite as quick, but who am I to argue? But I'm just going to say your first name is Robert Allen if you're me, right? There are no initials. And there is no middle name. They're not making any distinction for middle names, so don't have one. I'm Robert Allen, first name Britluski. Email, phone, get your mailing address. And then, are you now or have you ever been an active duty service member? Make sure you check that if you have been. And if you're doing this for somebody else and they were, make sure you check this. Because they have been. And they still are. Primary concern, so now you got to pick, what are you complaining about? Well, is it workplace? Is it housing? But this isn't to do with financing. This is just the housing itself, that they won't sell you a house. Been mistreated by police, right? So let's say if you follow me for any time, I did a lot of videos on things like traffic tickets, where the officer doesn't put his name, they don't put the proper name of the statute that you violated. There's all sorts of errors on a freaking traffic ticket. Well, you could do it for that also. But I'm not doing that today. I'm going to do when I'm voting rights here in a little bit, but I haven't got to it yet. Discrimination against commercial, not really, right? You weren't discriminated by a bank, right? They were going to do a deal with you. They just did it wrong. So I'm going to say other. Please describe other. Federal Reserve System simulated legal process under color of law, right? Because I'm complaining about, in this case, the complaint that I sent to the Federal Reserve and their answer. I'm not really complaining about the financial institution and their APR and finance charge. I complain about submitted that shit to the Federal Reserve Consumer Help System, and they simulated a legal process by telling me to go to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau instead of the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection, which is supposed to be created under the Federal Reserve System. So I'm trying to end the Fed. Something else happened. Don't like any of those? We'll pick something else. Something else happened. Location details. Okay, so again, this is not the bank. This is the Fed. This is the place on the complaint. This is these people. Right? And if you get the print version, just might as well do it. We're here still. Their information's here. Federal Reserve Consumer Help, got a P.O. box, address. So, that's what I'd be putting on the form for the situation I'm trying to describe, which is we filled this out complaining about truth in lending, and we've been sent to the wrong agency. But we started with this form here. So that's what I'm putting, that place in Minnesota, putting that on here. Date, yeah. Do you believe any of the personal characteristics influenced you? Yeah, what's the other reason then? Well, Federal Reserve System is an enemy of the United States. That's why I said they did it. Right? It wasn't my language, my nationality, my race, color, religion. No, the Federal Reserve System is an enemy of the United States. That's why they did it. And so what would you put, Rob? Well, I thought about it a bit, and I said, I would say, using the Federal Reserve Consumer Help website, I recently filed a complaint regarding disclosed APR and finance charge values in a consumer credit transaction that violate the Truth in Lending Act. According to the law, my complaint is to go to the bank regulator overseeing the lender or the bureau. Instead, I received a reply directing me to file a complaint with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB. This reply violates my civil rights, as the CFBB is not a bank regulator or the bureau, and in fact does not exist in law. According to Title 10 of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, the name of the bureau is the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection. And this is not the name of the entity I was told to contact. Federal Reserve Consumer Help, which is part of the Federal Reserve System, is simulating a legal process under color of law in violation of my civil rights. It'd be that simple. So I'm going to copy and paste this, if I remember, and put it into the, part where I can describe the video when I download the video, upload the video. And so if you, one of these people now who have gotten the shitty answer telling you where to go, if you would please fill this out and send in a Civil Rights Division complaint, it would be really good to see what they have to tell us. So that's really all this was about, was to get to this point, right? To say, hey, I did this, and this is what happened, and it's a violation of my civil rights. All that matters now is, will the new sheriff in town do something about it? And if you do it online, eventually you'll end up with something like this. It's going to thank you for submitting your report to the Civil Rights Division. They're going to give you a record number to tell you what to expect. Interesting thing is, excuse me. An interesting thing is, under what you can do next is, what they're telling you now that you filed the complaint, contact your local legal aid organization or a lawyer if you haven't already. And it gives you a way to get a hold of them. So we're here. We're going to take a look at it. Click on that. Allow. That takes you to this page here. This is, look, it's a .gov, right? The Legal Service Corporation. is an independent nonprofit established by Congress in 1974. So that makes this a federal corporation. Search by address. 10955 14 Mile Road. Yeah, that's me. Put me in here, and it says, this is your place. Contact legal aid here. Okay, let's do it. Proceed. And voila, I'm at the Legal Aid of Western Michigan website. So I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to take the complaint I did and go ahead and send it to them just to, do the whole thing. But I'm just showing you that was what it said you could do next. After you fill out the form, what you can do next. Where did it say that? Jeepers, hang on a second. There you go, what you can do next. I guess what did they say they're going to do? Well, we review your report. Our specialists carefully read every report to identify civil rights violations, spot trends, and determine if we have authority to help you with the report. Our specialists determine the next step. We may decide to open an investigation, collect more information, recommend another government agency. When possible, we will follow up with you. Then they said what you can do next. Then my submission. Put my information in. What was the location of the place? So I said, in my case, it was U.S. Army Human Resource Command. 1600 Spearhead Division Avenue, Fort Knox, Kentucky. An interesting thing back on the form, you'll look when you're putting in the organization, they don't give you a place to put in a zip code for them. They ask for your mailing address, but they ask for the location of the other party. And so there's no zip code involved. I said I had another reason. When did it happen? On 11/21/2004. I go on this one. I'm going to go ahead and read it. So I, Lusky Robert Allen, DOD ID number 12112800006, am an involuntarily absent enlistee of the Armed Forces of the United States and the victim of human trafficking scheme that has made it impossible for me to surrender and return to military control in accordance with Army regulations, so my absence can be excused. I can be issued proper military identification, collect my pay, allowance, and other benefits I'm entitled to by my indefinite enlistment in the U.S. Army. As recently as 21 November 2024, I filed a DA Form 4187, which is a personal action, with the U.S. Army Human Resource Command through the Chief, Casualty, and Mortuary Affairs, the Operations Division responsible for classifying soldiers as missing, to approve my present for duty status, excuse my absence, order I be issued an identification card, and allowed to retire. My request went unanswered. On another occasion, with a different office, I attempted to obtain a certificate of service described in 50 U.S.C. 4012 in order to verify my service, but my request was denied. Instead, I was offered the counterfeit certificate available online that is alleged to satisfy 50 U.S.C. 4012, but lacks the signature of the secretary required by the code. There are other attempts, but I see no need to pile on. The Legion Act of 2019, signed into law by President Trump, acknowledges that the United States has been at war continuously since 07 December 1941 till this very day, and will continue to be at war till further notice. My and every other enlistee's enlistment during this period of war was made indefinite under Title 10, United States Code 506 for regular components, extension of enlistment during a war, which requires the President to terminate my enlistment for it to end. My enlistment has not been terminated by the President, and yet the government of the United States refuses to acknowledge my existence and comply with the terms of our agreement, DD4 form, enlistment reenlistment document, Armed Forces of the United States. I am subject to the UCMJ, and as such, am entitled to file charge specifications according to Article 30 for fraud against the United States and dozens of other punitive articles, but I'm denied this entitlement by human trafficking, fraud against the United States committing, enemies of the United States impersonating as incumbents of a constitutional office, commission officer, or public official. Therefore, I here now surrender the United States Attorney General and await his order to facilitate my relief, return me to military control. So, hey, we'll see what happens with that, people. I mean, this would affect every enlistee. We all had the same problem, right? The Legion Access, we're still at war. And if we're still at war, well, under Title 10 United States Code, Section 506, your enlistment continues until the war ends or is terminated by the president. And neither of those things have happened. So there we are. And so in my case, my complaint's already filed. And I'm just asking, well, if you've been following along with TILA and you've been asking me about TILA and sending me emails about TILA, and can I calculate your stuff for you and do all these other things, and then you get this thing back saying, go to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, would you please file a complaint with the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, and we'll just see if the new sheriff in town is going to do something about it. Because that's what they're supposed to be doing, is getting rid of the administrative state. In which case, well, then the system should work the way it's supposed to. And the only way we're going to know is to test it. So that's what I'm trying to do, test the system. And I'm going to leave it there. Y'all have a great day. And, if you hear something, let me know. Quarter record, AOL.com. I'm going to leave it there. Y'all have a great day now. See ya. Bye-bye.